everybody, and welcome into Fantasy Football Picks and Bets presented to you by PrizePicks. I am Lauren Carpenter. You can find me at Stepmom Lauren, and we have a great show lined up for you today. We always have good shows, but I think it's going to be a really great show today because we are looking at waiver wire targets for week 4. We're also going to talk a little bit about the 7-Eleven challenge from yours truly and Pat Mayo that, I don't know, it could have gone just a little bit better. We also have some streaming options. We have some injuries that we have to go over. But before we begin and before we dive into any of that, remember, make sure you sign up for PrizePicks. That is prizepicks.com. Use the promo code MMN to get your deposit of up to $100 matched. It's like free money. I feel like I've been beating the drum for this. I love PrizePicks. It is so easy. It is so fun. Please get in on it. There's still time for you to get in on the 7-Eleven challenge as well. And what that is, it's very easy. We're looking at the Sunday slate of games. Pick out 5 over-unders and then change your bet amount to $7.11. And normally, on today's episode, I would have the leaderboard for you. Alan W., I'm still got my eyes on you to see if you're still in first place. But unfortunately, the leaderboard has not been updated yet. There are so many entries that they have because so many people have been involved, which is super fun because the 7-Eleven challenge is great. If you haven't signed up yet, everyone, again, promo code MMN. Your deposit is matched up to $100. 5 over-unders for that 7-Eleven challenge. Change your bet amount to $7.11 because that is how they track it. And without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right in because mine, I felt great about this. I felt so good. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get 5 out of 5. This is going to be great. And that didn't happen. It did not happen. So my over-unders, I was thinking they were going to be just absolutely spectacular. I went Brandon Cooks, which I did end up getting correctly, even with Davis Mills in at quarterback. I had him at 5.5 receptions on the over. I got that correct. Unfortunately, Teddy Bridgewater did not exceed the 255.5. I'm very sorry, Jess. My bad. I told her it was a smash play. Not so much. He got close. He got to 235 passing yards. But unfortunately, the game script just wasn't there for a passing quarterback when they were just annihilating the Jets. So there really wasn't much need to pass. Also, KJ Hamler got hurt. We'll talk about that later. I also had Christian McCaffrey. Speaking of injuries, I had him at 5.5 receptions. He did not get that before he left the game with an injured hamstring. He got 2 receptions, so obviously I didn't get that one. I also had Keenan Allen, and I had over on 82.5, which I thought was a smash play, but unfortunately, he only got 50. So I didn't get that one right either, but I did nail Sam Darnold. That sounded really bad. I nailed that pick, I should say, at 6.5 over on the rushing yards. And Pat Mayo did a little bit better than I did by 1, okay? It wasn't like he blew me out of the water, okay, people? But he did have Christian Kirk, which I thought was a little spicy, but apparently not, because it's Christian Kirk season from what it sounds like. He had the over on 44.5 receiving yards, and Christian Kirk ended up with 104. He had the under on Ben Roethlisberger, which I totally understand, but he had the under of 260.5 passing yards. He ended up throwing for 318 because they have no no running game still. Najee Harris, I still love you. Michael Carter, he had the over on 1.5 receptions. Excellent choice. I must have missed that one. Terry McLaurin, he had the under on 71.5 receiving yards. That was correct because Terry McLaurin, even though he did play well, only got 62 yards. And then finally, Mike Evans, he did the under on 64.5. I get that one too, but Mike Evans ended up doing 106 yards. So, he got 3 out of 5. I got 2 out of 5, but this is what makes this game so much fun. It is educated guessing, and there are so many different ways that we can play fantasy football and have a great time playing fantasy football, and using that promo code MMN will help you have even more fun when you get your deposit of up to $100 matched. I did it, and I love it, and it's kind of my new obsession. But we unfortunately have to get into stuff that is not fun, and those are injuries. We had a lot. So the big one, we all know, Christian McCaffrey. He went out early with a hamstring injury. kind of did a little hop, skip, and a jump there when he was, making a run, and it did not look good. So they combined like Tommy Tremble, Sam Darnold, Chuba Hubbard. I mean, no matter what, you're just not going to get Christian McCaffrey type numbers. But unfortunately, that's what we're going to have to deal with. So I am obviously going to be bringing up Chuba Hubbard here later when it comes to the running back waivers that you should be targeting. The good news is that the Panthers do not believe they're going to be putting Christian McCaffrey on IR. So this means about 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks. So this is better news, but unfortunately hamstring injuries just have a tendency to linger. And that's really, really annoying because we had a couple players go out with a hamstring injury. And 2 of them were from the Giants, and one of them is one of my favorite players for fantasy who ended up really letting me down, although it's not really his fault because he got injured. But it's Sterling Shepard and Darius Slayton both left early with a hamstring injury. A.J. Brown also left early with a hamstring injury. It's like it's hamstring injury season. Not good, because those are just long-lasting and just, they're garbage. And as someone who has actually suffered a pulled hamstring, it is miserable. It is absolutely miserable. So speedy recovery to all of those players. We also have some unfortunate news out of Denver, which is very sad. KJ Hamler has likely torn his ACL, and he's done for the season. That stinks because, as my good friend Laquan, who does the Sunday recap shows, mentioned, they are thin at the Denver Broncos wide receiver core. They really have Cortland Sutton and Tim Patrick. Another one that I think is a must-add is going to be Tim Patrick, if you have not done so already. But another speedy recovery to KJ Hamler. He's one of those deep field threats that will be missed in that Denver offense. So stinky. Juju Smith-Schuster from the Pittsburgh Steelers, he is dealing with a rib injury. He is considered day-to-day, so that is good-ish. At least he's not, getting put on IR or whatever. But without Juju Smith-Schuster and without Deontay Harris, this turned into a weird game because Ben Roethlisberger really can't target Chase Claypool because he's a deep threat, and Ben Roethlisberger can't throw it very far. So this actually speaks a little bit more to Pat Freiermuth, which is who I'm going to be bringing up later in our tight end waiver targets. And then Justin Fields was sacked 9 times, so that hurts. And he's obviously questionable because when you literally get hit by a car 9 times, also known as, Myles Garrett did it 4.5 times, but Justin Fields also has a hand injury. So Matt Nagy has said that the starting quarterback position is now completely up in the air. It could be Andy Dalton if he's healthy. It could be Justin Fields. And even Nick Foles is in play here for the Bears. This is not good for their offense. That whole situation was a hot mess for Justin Fields, and he ran into the buzzsaw of the Browns defense, and Myles Garrett literally ate him like lasagna. It was bad. And James White also had a hip subluxation. I couldn't say this the last time when we were talking about Ryan Fitzpatrick, but I think I got it right. Popped in, popped out, not good. He likely is looking at injured reserve, but nothing has been decided yet. This is Monday evening when I am recording this for you, and we'll see. We'll see what happens with James White. This stinks for Mac Jones because James White was a target there to put points on the board. So another speedy recovery to all of these players, but the show must go on, and we really do need to make some changes to our lineups if we have any of these players, or if we want to make any adjustments, or just kind of shake things up a little bit, because we're heading into week 4 already. I do this every year. I'm like, I cannot believe it's already week 4. Oh my gosh, but here we are. So let's dive right into the waiver wire segment. Let's talk about our wide receivers. Now, there are a lot, but first and foremost, go ahead and see if Christian Kirk is available. It's likely that he's not because he is rostered in over 50% of leagues, but if he is, pick him up. It looks like he and AJ Green might actually be something, which is pretty cool. We have another player who's a veteran resurgence for 2021, which is very exciting. But see if Christian Kirk is available, because if he is, I would add him. I was low on him heading into week 3, but shame on me for that because I liked it. Actually, there's 2 other players that are kind of veteran resurgence, which I really like. But if you are in one of those deeper leagues, perhaps, maybe the 14 teams or, God forbid, 16 teams. First of all, what are you doing? Get out of that. Go to something smaller. That's just way too much. But Nick Westbrook, Ikine, I think I said that correctly, from the Titans. He is not rostered anywhere. At least at Yahoo. He might be in other places, but doubtful that it's very much. With A.J. Brown, as I mentioned, sidelined with a hamstring injury for who knows how long. It was Nick Westbrook who got involved, and He went 4 for 4 with 53 yards and 1 touchdown. Now, this will likely be touchdown dependent because don't forget there is still Julio Jones. But if you are in deep leagues, like I mentioned, and if you're desperate, you can add him. He's likely very free, and he will probably still be on my dumpster dive segment on Wednesday when I hopefully have a leaderboard for you from PrizePicks as well. So Nick Westbrook, that is someone that you should keep your eye on. I don't necessarily think this involves a first priority waiver claim or a lot of fab because like I said, he could be free after waivers have run. They played the Jets, they played the Jacksonville Jaguars, and then they also played Buffalo. It's not great, but if you're missing AJ Brown, he may be used by default. Also, Anthony Ferkser was not active on Sunday either. And one of those players, like I wanted to mention, that's the veteran resurgence, Emmanuel Sanders. Hi, you're awesome. He did so great, and I am remiss because I do the Sunday morning live Q&A to help you with your starts and sits, and I kind of hemmed and hawed a little bit about Emmanuel Sanders, and then I ended up backing off on this because I figured this would be a Stephon Diggs game since he really hasn't gotten going quite yet with the Bills offense, but no, I was wrong. It was Emmanuel Sanders, guys. He had 6 targets, 5 receptions, 94 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Do you have any idea how heartbreaking this was for me, for that one person that asked if they should start Emmanuel Sanders, and I said no? I feel like a horrible human being, but this happens in fantasy football. Like I said, it is educated guessing. He is 26% rostered, and if Josh Allen is going to continue throwing the rock like he's been doing, why not? If you need a wide receiver, if you need somebody to fill in, he has done very well, and don't know how sustainable it is. This is one I don't absolutely love, but if he can continue to get 6 targets, I mean, that's something. That is something that can put points on the board for you if you are desperate at the wide receiver position. They play Houston, Kansas City, and then Tennessee over the next 3 weeks. And then yet to play tonight in this game, because I'm recording this actually right at the start of the Monday night game, Jalen Reagor is someone I think you should keep your eyes on, but he is 25% rostered. He could have had a pretty explosive game if he wouldn't have stepped out of bounds in week 2. But in week 1, he had a big game against Atlanta because let's face it, who doesn't? 6 targets, 6 receptions, 49 yards, and a touchdown. And again, week 2 would have been pretty big if he wouldn't have stepped out of bounds and gotten that touchdown. It was also kind of a weird game in week 2 for the Eagles, so I'm kind of tossing that up as a little fluky. Now, Jalen Reagor is a big playability guy. He may be a little bit more boom or bust, but just realize that when you're putting him on your roster. That's the kind of person that Jalen Reagor is. But see how he did Monday against Dallas, because he hasn't played yet. So maybe it's going to be really good, and then I'll look like a fortune teller, which I guess I'm trying to be anyway, because this is fantasy football. We're trying to tell the future with these people's fantasy lives. They play Kansas City, Carolina, and Tampa Bay. This is a pretty decent schedule for the Eagles wide receivers moving forward. And as I mentioned before, the situation in Denver is kind of bleak, so if you have not added Tim Patrick, or God forbid, if Cortland Sutton is still out there, swoop him up immediately. But Tim Patrick is still 23% rostered, despite the fact that I have been beating the drum for this kid, and I will continue to do so as long as he remains under 40% rostered. I really don't get it. He's had double-digit fantasy scores so far in 2021. And then in this week, he went 5 for 5 with 98 yards. I mean, that's great. So put him on your team. I mean, even if it's trade value later or something, if you need a wide receiver or even a flex spot, this is the guy that you should pick up. Tim Patrick, available in 23% of rosters for the Denver Broncos. And another one really surprised me, both Hunter Renfrow and Bryan Edwards. I liked Hunter Renfrow because I love his target volume, but Bryan Edwards also surprised me as well. And Derek Carr has been red hot, and the Raiders have been red hot, and they're really trying to revamp themselves and prove themselves in the NFL. And I like that, because they're playing like it. And these games are getting close. They're going into overtime, and Derek Carr has got to be slinging the rock, and he targets Hunter Renfrow a lot. He targets Henry Ruggs a lot, and he targets Bryan Edwards as well in clutch long plays. So all 3 of these guys have the opportunity to give you value on your fantasy team. So Hunter Renfrow is only 11% rostered. He has had double-digit fantasy points as well in all 3 weeks so far this season. And with a banged-up Josh Jacobs, let me just add on to that, they're going to be throwing it a lot as well, especially when they're in these tight matchups and games anyway. So Bryan Edwards is 17% rostered. He went 5 for 3 with 89 yards. That's 5 targets, 3 receptions. And Henry Ruggs, a little bit more rostered in other places as opposed to Renfrow and Edwards. Henry Ruggs is 55% rostered, so there is a possibility that he's still out there. And if he is, swoop him up. They play the Chargers, they play Chicago, and then they play Denver. This is actually a pretty good schedule. Chicago's a little iffy, but again, I'm not really sure if it matters because Derek Carr has kind of proven that he's matchup proof so far. Oh, knock on wood that I didn't just curse him right there, but they're not slowing down, and this is looking really good for the Raiders. So I like any 3 of those players from the Raiders. Hunter Renfrow is going to be your safer player, safer floor. Bryan Edwards is going to be the more likely available of your deep field play guys, and Henry Ruggs is going to be the one you want to swoop up before those 2 if he happens to be available. And as I mentioned before with the Cardinals in this veteran resurgence, we have AJ Green. Okay, I kind of laughed at this prior to the start of the season, but is this redemption for AJ Green? He has had double-digit fantasy points in the last 2 weeks, and this week he went 6 for 5 with 112. Like, this is no joke. Now, granted, DeAndre Hopkins is banged up, so that could be a reason why we saw such a huge game from Christian Kirk as well as from AJ Green, but he's got some bruised ribs. I mean, this isn't really easy to, I'm going to sound super, weird here, but I've also cracked and bruised my ribs. I was stepped on by a horse. Long story. Those are not easy to get over, okay? So it is possible that we're going to see a hobbled DeAndre Hopkins for a few weeks, and if that's the case, Christian Kirk and AJ Green, man. So AJ Green is rostered in 15% of leagues. They face the Rams, they play San Francisco, and then they play Cleveland at Cleveland. It is not a good schedule, but again, this is a similar situation than what we see with the Raiders. Doesn't really matter with Kyler Murray. Doesn't matter with the way that he's playing. And with AJ Green being so good at what he does and being such a solid veteran with so many seasons under his belt, is it going to matter? I'm not sure if it will. So I don't feel too bad picking up AJ Green if you are in need of a wide receiver, which is pretty great. And again, another veteran resurgence player. I feel like 2016 is calling and they want all their players back. But Deshaun Jackson, okay, he is only 2% rostered. Now, there's a pretty deep history here with Deshaun Jackson and Sean McVay. And he did make a promise that he was going to get Deshaun Jackson involved. And oh my gosh, did he. He was 5 for 3 with 120 yards and a touchdown. Now, if you're not familiar with who Deshaun Jackson is, maybe you're new to fantasy, this is kind of his bread and butter. He is a deep threat. But man, he is fast. And when he gets the ball, you cannot stop him. He is so good. He is older, so he's a little bit more injury risk, if you will. But if you need someone, he is only 2% rostered. He is going to be that home run guy for you. When it's going to happen, I don't know. But I feel like I have a little bit more confidence in this than I did maybe a few weeks ago, simply because of Matt Stafford's willingness to keep targeting players that really pull through for him, like Cooper Kupp is a big one, and now maybe Deshaun Jackson. It's almost like the Cooper Kupp is his Kenny Golladay, and then the Marvin Jones Jr. is his Deshaun Jackson. He does not like to move away from guys that he trusts, and he knows that they can move the plays forward. So I do not hate adding Deshaun Jackson. The Rams are facing Arizona, Seattle, and the Giants. So, it's pretty decent for them. But again, we're talking about Matt Stafford here, and I like this. I like this, even if it's a speculative ad. This is another player I will likely be bringing up in our Streamers Dumpster Dive video on Wednesday. So if you don't want to burn a waiver claim, if you don't want to maybe put in any fab or really deal with dropping anyone quite yet, totally get it. Because I think you can wait on Deshaun Jackson until maybe waivers have passed. But, this could blow up in my face. Who knows? But I really like what I saw from that team. I like what the Rams are doing. And as a bitter St. Louisan, I really like the Rams this year. And I may be turning back into a Rams fan. Like, Laquan, what have you done to me? The struggle is real. But let's move away from our wide receivers. Let's go ahead and jump into our running backs. And like I mentioned, there is one obvious one we have to bring up here. It is Chuba Hubbard for the Panthers. He is the clear backup to Christian McCaffrey. He's also only 25% rostered, which is a little odd considering it's Christian McCaffrey, but that is okay. He is the obvious ad. You're not going to get Christian McCaffrey type production from anyone. I don't care who you are, but Chuba Hubbard is going to be your volume-based play. He is going to be the one that is going to be seeing a ton of work. And even when they sprinkle in a little bit of Royce Freeman, which I don't love, because he might be kind of like the Latavius Murray and just kind of steal touchdowns, so very touchdown dependent, which I don't like as much. Chuba Hubbard is going to be your in-between-the-20s guys until we know a little bit more about how he's going to be filling in this offense. He had a sluggish start, but again, he's young. So I think this came as a surprise not only to, Christian McCaffrey, but to everybody. So it's going to be a volume play. I don't absolutely love it, but it's necessary. It is necessary to go pick up Chuba Hubbard, especially if you are the Christian McCaffrey manager. You might have to spend a pretty penny on your fab, and I'm sorry about that, but these things happen. It's the NFL, and it's injuries. So he did have 11 carries for 52 yards. Interesting, he also had 5 targets, 3 receptions for 27 yards. I understand that Tommy Tremble, the tight end, was the one that got the touchdown. And like I said, Royce Freeman is still there. There's also DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson, and there's other assets that are there, but they still need to have a solid run game. So Chuba Hubbard is going to be your volume play, 25% rostered. He's kind of the obvious one. And I mentioned Royce Freeman, and like I said, I don't really love that one unless you're in deep leagues and you're very, very desperate. 1% rostered. Meh. They played Dallas, Philadelphia, and Minnesota. It's not great, but again, it's not horrible, and this is purely volume for Chuba Hubbard. And then moving right along back to the Raiders, I feel like all of my videos and my shows are about Sin City. I think I need to plan a trip to Vegas, just because. But Peyton Barber, okay? I kind of laughed at this one too. Maybe I'm just a very cynical person. I have no idea. But he is 7% rostered. And he did not impress me in week 2 at all. But he ended up changing my mind. He had 23 carries. That is incredible for over 100 yards. It was 111 with a rushing touchdown. He also had 5 targets, 3 receptions, and 31 yards in the passing game, which is pretty impressive. I think he's going to become irrelevant as soon as Josh Jacobs comes back. But until then, we don't know how long Jacobs is going to be out, or if he's going to be on a snap count, or how the Raiders are really going to be working this run game. It's very, very sneaky. And the running back position, it is very hard to find viable options on the waiver wire. So Peyton Barber is someone I definitely wouldn't mind snagging and playing while you can, because you never know, maybe Jacobs will get hurt later. Who knows? But if you need someone to start at the running back position, I like Peyton Barber. And another one that really stood out to me too, which really makes me happy, is Giovanni Bernard for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I love him so much because he always plays second fiddle, but he really did such a great job in this game against the Rams of all defenses. He is only 16% rostered, and it looks to me like Rojo is firmly entrenched, I think is the word. One of those words I'm sure is correct, but he's there. He is in Bruce Arians' dog house. So whatever. He's the clear backup behind Leonard Fournette. But what's interesting about Giovanni Bernard is that he didn't have a single carry. All of his work, his extensive work in that game came from receptions. He had 10 targets, 9 receptions, 51 yards, and turned one of those into a touchdown, which is awesome. So they face New England, Miami, and Philadelphia. It's not one of those schedules that I super love, but again, if you really need somebody, and especially in deeper leagues, Giovanni Bernard, again, is only 16% rostered, so he could add a little bit of value for you, even in a flex opportunity. But Giovanni Bernard, man, he's like the Energizer Bunny. I really, really like him, and I hope this works out for him in Tampa Bay, because I don't think another player in the NFL, maybe besides Jamal Williams, works harder than this guy. So good for him. That was pretty awesome. And then Malcolm Brown for the Dolphins. This was weird. I don't love this. This is purely touchdown dependent if you are very, very desperate, because this is still Myles Gaskin's backfield. I understand that there's going to be a lot of splits. I understand it's Jacoby Brissett, who did surprise me as well. But Malcolm Brown, if you really, really need a running back, 7% rostered. He had 7 carries for 31 yards. That by itself is not good, but he did fall into the end zone. I say fall. That's being very sarcastic. He did score a touchdown. I don't like it. I don't like it, but I feel it's necessary to tell you that he is at least somewhat maybe fantasy-ish. I feel that he's going to be more fantasy annoying than fantasy relevant. So just keep that in mind with Malcolm Brown. If you have space on your bench to be able to stash him, then maybe that would be an opportunity for you. But Malcolm Brown is one that I really, really don't love because it's so touchdown dependent and you don't have the kind of volume that we need when it comes to running backs who are going to be able to score you points. And last but not least, another player in tonight's game, Monday night game, is going to be Kenny Gainwell. He is 35% rostered, so might not be available, but if he is, swoop him up because defenses are going to be keying in on Miles Sanders, and Kenny Gainwell has overtaken Boston Scott. So I like him. They play Kansas City and Carolina and Tampa Bay. That is not awesome for right now, but even if you can't get him, maybe someone will drop him, and then maybe later on in the season when they have a better schedule, it'll be, a little bit nicer to have Kenny Gainwell, especially with the injury-consistent Miles Sanders. I don't want to say injury-prone. I want to say less than sustainable Miles Sanders. It would be pretty solid to have Kenneth Gainwell on your roster, 35% rostered. And let's go ahead and dive right into our tight ends, which is, oddly enough, not as gross as it normally is, but the first and foremost right up here is going to be Tyler Conklin. Now, this is a little concerning to me because I feel that KJ Osborne, wide receiver for the Vikings, and Tyler Conklin are going to be playing, like hot potato with each other because KJ Osborne did not have a great game, but Tyler Conklin had an awesome game. So it's kind of like the tight end and the wide receiver are switching spots. So when you can think you can predict when one is going to do well as opposed to the other, then by all means pick up Tyler Conklin. There are worse options on the waiver wire at tight end position, I suppose. He's only 4% rostered, so he may not even get picked up after waivers are going through. So he may also be on my tight end dumpster dives and streamers on my Wednesday show. But he did get 8 targets, had 7 receptions, 70 yards, and a touchdown. They'll play Cleveland, Detroit, and Carolina. Cleveland and Detroit, I love. I love those matchups for Tyler Conklin. Carolina, not so good. But yeah, Tyler Conklin is just kind of one of those where it's like, okay. Because if it doesn't hit, you can just go ahead and drop him. Kind of like my Max Williams pick, which was totally for fun. But, he almost did okay. But this is neither here nor there. Moving on, Dawson Knox, tight end for the Buffalo Bills. He did this last year as well. Like, he'll have blow-up games. But you really can never predict when those games are going to go. He is 10% rostered. He's been a little more consistent this year, but really this game against Washington was 12.9 points, and I don't know if that was half or full PPR. I think it was just half PPR, maybe full PPR. Don't quote me on that. But he did score 6.1 in week 1, 8.7 in week 2, so it's not like he's giving you a goose egg, but he does have the potential to give you that. So just be aware when it comes to Dawson Knox for the Buffalo Bills. He is 10% rostered. They play Houston, Kansas City, and then Tennessee. I don't love Tennessee, but I do love Houston, and I do love them playing against Kansas City. So Dawson Knox is another opportunity there for the short term here, especially if you're streaming the tight end position. And then, like I mentioned earlier, Pat Freiermuth. Okay, I see you. And the reason I see you is because you managed to make kind of magic happen. And we don't know how long Deontay Johnson is going to be out. We don't know how long Juju Smith-Schuster is going to be out. Let's say they both play. Are they banged up? Are they going to be on a snap count? Ben Roethlisberger cannot throw the ball past like 10 yards. So Pat Freiermuth is going to have to be the slot guy. He's going to have to be the dump-off guy like Najee Harris is going to do, which just makes me love Najee Harris even more. So if you are desperate for tight end, I don't hate this. And they play, Green Bay. I love that matchup at Green Bay. And they play Green Bay in week 4. So, man, I actually might go for Pat Freiermuth here, especially against Green Bay. They also play Denver and Seattle, which I don't love as much. But if there was a time to play Pat Freiermuth in the next 3 weeks, it's going to be in week 4 against Green Bay. And then another one, speaking of kind of injuries we're looking at, I didn't really hear anything more about what happened with Rob Gronkowski, even though he was pulled off the field, put into the medical tent, and then he came back out again. And I was like, wait, what the hell happened? What is going on? Cameron Brate had 5 targets, 4 receptions, and 35 yards. If Rob Gronkowski is questionable, if he's not going to be playing or if he's going to be limited, Tom Brady likes the tight end position. Cameron Brate is also 0% rostered. I don't think you need to spend any fab or waste any kind of waiver claim on Cameron Brate. He likely will still be available unless you're in really super deep leagues. And it is going to be teammate injury dependent when it comes to Cameron Brate. They face New England. Oh, I cannot wait for that game. Revenge. Cue the Adele music. Miami and then Philadelphia. On paper, the schedule is really, really bad, but it's Tom Brady. So there's that. Also, check to see if by any stretch of miracles that Mike Gesicki or Tyler Higbee might somehow be available. They are over 50% rostered as well, but you never know, because if they are, pick them up ahead of all of those guys. Okay, let's jump right into our streaming options for the quarterback position and for our defense, special teams. Derek Carr, he's still doing it. He proved me wrong with my fear of him totally busting, which he did not do. Thank you, Derek Carr. At least one thing went right my way, because Week 3 was tough. Week 3 was tough with fantasy advice. I wish it all would go my way, but unfortunately it doesn't. And the only reason I want it to go my way is because I want you to succeed, because this is why I love doing what I do in the fantasy space. So Derek Carr, thank you for not making me look too much like an idiot. Likely unavailable, but check just in case. Teddy Bridgewater, he's still there, 28% rostered. The game script against the Jets did cap his upside because they did a lot of running. They did not need to throw against the Jets. They are facing Baltimore this week, which I do like because Baltimore has allowed the 5th most points to quarterbacks so far this season, which is very surprising. Another quarterback I love, Sam Darnold. We all wanted him, well, I don't know about we all, but I really wanted him to succeed in Carolina with the Panthers. And man, he's done really well. He actually looks like a man renewed. He looks like a new, reborn person, and that is pretty awesome to see, especially coming from someone like myself who has really thrived off of second chances. So good for you, Sam Darnold. He is only 22% rostered. They are facing Dallas on Sunday, who have allowed the 10th most points to the quarterback position. Last but not least, let's get spicy, everyone. Let's go crazy. Let's go Taylor Heinicke. I know that the Bills put up a 40-burger against Washington, but that doesn't matter for us when the quarterback is still scoring points in fantasy, and they're playing Atlanta. Speaking of allowing points to the quarterback position, Atlanta's the worst in the league. So I really like Taylor Heinicke. If you are in deeper leagues, or if those other 2 guys or 3 guys, if you include Derek Carr, are taken and you are desperate for some options, Taylor Heinicke has done really well. He finished that game against Buffalo with over 20 fantasy points, by the way, and he did not give up. That kid is not ever going to give up. He's also only 6% rostered. Now let's dive into our defense and special teams, everybody. Please remember, do not ignore your defense. Don't just set it and forget it. Defenses are one of the most fluid and dynamically changing pieces on your fantasy roster every single week. It is so incredibly difficult to have that one stardom and never deal with it ever again defense. So stream your defense if you feel like it, because it is a little bit more work because you have to constantly look for defenses, but they can get you fantasy points. And let's look no further than the Tennessee Titans. 15% rostered, so likely available. They're facing the Jets. Do I need to say any more? Poor Zach Wilson. The Abercrombie and Fitch model is getting fed to the wolves and just like beaten down with a boulder. And he's like standing back up again and smiling somehow, and he still has his teeth. That shocks me. So Tennessee Titans, I really like. Another one, surprise, surprise, I'm going to go Detroit Lions. I know this is maybe a little stinky, but bear with me. The Lions have been very surprising. They held the Ravens. Their offense was not pretty. With someone like Lamar Jackson, come on. It took an NFL field goal breaking kick and a doink off the goalpost from Justin Tucker for the Ravens to win, like with time expiring. That was so dramatic. The Lions are legit. And they may not be winning, but that's kind of like the curse of the Lions. I would know. My husband is a Lions fan, and by proxy, I am a Lions fan. So it's hard to watch, but you know what? The Lions are facing the Bears, and the Bears have a terrible offensive line. Terrible. And Justin Fields was sacked 9 times. Need I say more? Interceptions opportunities are there. We're not even sure who's going to be the quarterback. It could be Nick Foles. Who knows? And then obviously the Lions, not shocking, they are likely not rostered anywhere. So if you are in deeper leagues and you really need a defense, look at the Lions, because I think they could be a sneaky play. Or sticking in the same division, we can go with the Green Bay Packers. They're playing the Steelers. This one I don't love as much. The reason I'm bringing them up here is because they're only 14% rostered, so they're likely available. And Ben Roethlisberger is not throwing deep, and when he does, it's questionable. So there are opportunities for interceptions, and there are also opportunities for pressures on the quarterback and sacks. I want to bring that up. I don't love this one as much as I really like Tennessee Titans and the Lions, but I also don't hate the Green Bay Packers. And that's all you have for me today on your Monday evening. So whether you're watching this tonight or you're watching this on Tuesday, thank you so much for tuning in. I am sorry that we don't have our updated leaderboard ready for you. But again, there were so many submissions. It's impossible to get these out really that quickly. But we will have them out to you as soon as possible. And if you haven't done so already, please do me a huge solid and go ahead and like this video. And if you haven't subscribed to the Mayo Media Net, what are you waiting for? Subscribe so you can see my smiling face. You can see all of our amazing content producers, all of our amazing hosts, and then there's Pat Mayo. We're here for you. We're here for you all season long. This is what we do. We're here to help you win. Don't forget, sign up at PrizePicks.com. Use the promo code MMN. You get your deposit of up to $100 matched. And if you want to come find me, I am Lauren Carpenter, and you can find me at StepMomLauren. And you'll hear from me on Wednesday. And we'll talk a little bit more about some more streaming options, maybe some guys who might have cleared waivers, and some dumpster dives. Because, you know, it happens. Sometimes we don't get all those guys we want on the waivers, which is boo hiss. But again, that's what we're here for you. Have a wonderful either evening or wonderful rest of your day.